going to have a wee talk about some of the repair jobs going on recently and some of the things we've seen over recent months and years when things go wrong on fast tracks. We've a rear axle of, that's a stage 5 tractor, stage 4 over here, another stage 4 there. But we've seen these bearings coming loose on the Kingpin. Just going to give you a little look. This is the swivel, so this is your whole wheel bearings goes on there, and this is the pivot point for your whole hub, so the steering ram goes on there. This is the bearing that retains it, so this is the one on the bottom. 4 bolts on the earlier tractors. I've upgraded that to 6 thankfully, so it has got stronger on the tier 5 tractors. But there's lots of tier 4 out there, and all the earlier 2170s, 2135s, 1125s all use the same setup. And there's loads of load alls and every type of other JSP machine using similar hubs. There's a lot of stress on these. So when something becomes this loose, it's time to change it. We've got a big problem. So yeah, we've had a customer had these come loose more than once, and yeah, he's become aware that the bolts coming loose. He wasn't sure why. Now, it wasn't a tractor that was bought here, it was bought from another source. Now, what will I say? If you're going to get work done, you know, stick with qualified people who know what they're at. That's good advice to anyone. Someone tells you they're changing hub bearings and hub seals, don't let them hand you back. This is what we're after having to strip out. This is a bearing that is allegedly changed for a customer, and that doesn't look like it's ever been changed. It's just literally worn out. So we had a hub seal supposedly changed. That's so I'm going to say a cheap job done. The big problem for me is when these tractors are repaired by anyone or serviced, the one thing I'm generally sure is they're not being tested. Now, there is probably about 10% of fast tracks now are tested. Maybe, I don't know exactly what that number is, probably about 30 of them according to whatever sources I've seen. When someone works on this tractor, they're signing off on the job. If no one's testing the tractor, you were the last man walking. So that's me, Harry, Caleb, Shane, whoever. Something goes wrong, there's an accident on the road, something falls apart, wheel comes off, whatever it is, or in this case, shears the bolts off in the Kingpin. Like, this is the rear axle. We're talking about the rear axle, just letting go. So you can imagine you with 4 wheels on your car, one of them falls off. Well, obviously you're going to have a problem. That will happen with a fast track if these bolts shear. So someone takes on a repair job, tells you, yeah, it's grand. And when it's all done, we have this amount of movement in the Kingpin. You got a big problem. Yeah. Stick with someone that's qualified, that knows what they're doing, lads. There's a good network of qualified mechanics and garages around the country. The JSP dealership a network has got larger, and we're here independent specialists. I'm 25 years at fast tracks, and letting work like that out is not acceptable at all. Problems with the handbrake, for instance. I'm going to show you the amount of wear on certain components in here on the handbrake. Bushings worn through. Thrust washers inside in the handbrake unit. This is what they look like now. I don't know what that looks like on camera. It looks like a pile of rusty parts. That's supposedly from a service tractor, but we'll stick with simple stuff. Someone tells me this machine was serviced recently. We take out filters, and I'd say that there it was sold to a guy in the construction trade. I don't think he was making hay recently, but that was one of the filters that we found that was supposedly changed. So, you know, people paying good money for good machines, and they're getting substandard services and substandard work, and then when things go wrong and there's guys complaining they're not happy the machine's getting fobbed off with, oh yeah, we fixed that problem. That bearing there, ready to collapse. That Kingpin, not fit for purpose, because the whole hub was in major trouble, and we've had to change this whole entire unit. It let the customer down more than once. He made more than once he let it be known that something was wrong, that this wasn't with ourselves. He wasn't dealing with us at the time, but he's come to us since. So we took on the job and we stripped it down, and we found all of this. Also in the handbrake, we noticed there was missing components as well, which were creating a lot of noise. And anyone being in the middle of a fast track handbrake will realise there's an anti-rattle spring that sits on top of the pads here, and if it's not present, you end up with a lot of noise from the pads jingling around. And you kind of think that you hear this jingly noise of the pins and that moving around. You might think there's a diff going, you might think there's bearings going in your back end and your axle and the gearbox and the drive shaft, but that sort of stuff. We had to change Kingpin bearings as well. We've seen internally those little lines worn out. You can't see them now because we've had to use a welder to pull them out, but you'll see little marks on bearings as they're coming due, time for change. there was marks in that. Again, it was only stripped down recently by an unknown person, whatever, and substandard book carried it. That's not up to the job at all. So my biggest fear is these tractors out on motorways, travelling around all the roads in the country, pretty much doing the work of commercial machines. Like a lot of guys say a fast track does the work of the truck. They're pulling trailers, 3, sometimes 4 axles behind them, diggers 12, 13, 16, 20 ton. We've seen lads moving machines 25 ton. I don't know if that's legal, but they're doing it anyway behind fast tracks. And if they're tested, well, there's some come back for the, I don't know, for maybe the driver that's been tested. But if you're out on the road, have it. You're obviously going to have it taxed. There's no one going to drive a tractor and know this tax. We're all too honest for that. Yeah, that's it. There's laughing there. Have it properly insured, but make sure the tractor was roadworthy. This tractor was not roadworthy, and this was fobbed off as a good repair. It'll be grand, and there was bolts sheared more than once on the road. Lucky there wasn't an accident this tractor. Thankfully, Harry, we nipped it on the bud, and that's the end of that. So I have enough of a rant on that, Harry. I'll probably have to do a bit of editing on that one. What do you think? Did we take an